Hi, everyone. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about the Institutional Review Board application that you will be beginning right now. Maybe you already have started pulling together pieces for this project. So, the Institutional Review Board is a group of people at the university level who will review each research study to make sure that all human subjects protections are in place. So at the beginning of the semester, when you went through the city training, you probably heard about this institutional review board. So anybody who is conducting research that may be shared outside of your school, or outside of Illinois State University, has to complete the IRB process. So my colleague Anna Smith, who is amazing, who's taught this class a few times, worked with her graduate student to put together this form. So you all have access to this form. I'm going to walk you through this and kind of toggle back and forth between this and the IRB website. So for just general information about the Institutional Review Board, about human subjects protections and research, you can go to the link that is listed here. So when you click on this link, it takes you to this page. Here you can get more information than you ever wanted to know about the IRB process. So you can click on these to just get some general information about what types of research requires IRB approval, the different levels of IRB approval. This one, I mean, you can take a look at this, but truly no one, just given what you all are doing for your research studies, no one will have a study that's considered, will be in need of a full review. So studies that are very controversial or include a lot of deception or things like that may require full board approval. And that just means that it has to be reviewed by a group of people at the university level. It's very time consuming. So none of us want to do that. So you can read about it here if you want to, but just know that that's not going to apply to your research study. So what you are going to be doing is submitting an IRB protocol. So on here, you can look at these links to find out more about what types of things go into the protocol, how you access Cayuse, which is a program that's used as sort of like a database for submitting all the materials to the Institutional Review Board, and so on. So as you probably noticed and maybe read about in the lesson for this week, you'll be doing this IRB protocol submission over several different phases, I guess you would say. So to help us through this process, like I said, Dr. Smith and her graduate student put together a step-by-step document that will really help with putting everything that you need together for your IRB protocol. If you were to just jump straight to this, submitting a proposal in Cayuse, you would have to log in. Right at this moment, if you tried to do this, you would probably get stopped because I'm in the process of getting everyone in the class access to Cayuse so that you all can go in and submit your protocols. So this is my page, so it'll look a little different than yours because I've obviously submitted different studies over the course of the however many years I've been here. But once you get approved to go into Cayuse, this is what the page looks like. But before that, I want us to just kind of go through and think about what each of these different elements means. You'll need to come up with a title for your research study if you haven't already. So something to note, the things that are marked in blue, like you see here, this number 1 under routing information, is another institution engaged in collaboration research with ISU. For this particular class, none of you are collaborating with people from another university, so everybody will put no for that. So everything that's marked in blue, that's how you should answer that question. So for this one, it is no. The second one, does this study meet the federal regulations definition of human subject research? Yes. So everybody will put yes. In your mind, you may be thinking, I really don't have any idea. I'm telling you, everybody in this class, all of the studies that I've heard about so far are eligible for human subjects research. So that's important to know. The things that are highlighted in green are the things that you will insert. So things that you'll type into this document. So for example, if the name of your study is the use of um, standards-based grading in a fifth grade classroom, that's gonna be your title. Okay, so you'll type that in. Later on, you'll see things that are highlighted in this lovely purple color. Those are things that are going to be are places where you're going to need to read more, and there'll be some specific directions for you to do and things that you'll need to do related to those topics. So, for example, we get right to it down here. As I shared in here, sorry, let me go back. Learning about the review levels. Most of you will be doing studies that are exempt from further review. Basically, what that means is that you are doing studies that have no more than minimal risk, that are either being done with other adults or with your own students, and thus would be exempt for further review. That doesn't mean they're not going to be reviewed at all. That just means that one person in the Research and Sponsored Programs Office will take a look at those, make sure everything looks okay, and will be approved. Quick, easy process. Some of your studies may need to go to expedited review, which this is something like if you're doing interviews of your students and you're recording video observations of students, those would be things that would need to be go through an expedited review, which basically means that multiple people at the university level would take a look at your study protocol and make sure that everything is in place. If you're working with vulnerable populations, those types of things, then those almost always go to expedited review. Like I said earlier, you're not going to have to worry about full board review, so no need to worry about that. So here is where you'll be thinking about whether you feel like your study is an exempt or expedited or full. So again, I've already told you there's like 0% chance that it's full. So it's going to be either exempt or expedited. So like I said, if you're just doing surveys, interviews, those types of things with adults, you're doing typical teaching practices like say you are collecting work samples from your students and you're not doing anything different than you would normally be doing other than looking at those work samples for the use of research, then you wouldn't have to go to that expedited level of review. Okay, so those are things to think about. If you're still not sure when we get to that point, you can make a note or a comment and we can figure that out together. None of our studies are funded, sadly. If you feel like your study is exempt, then you can go here. So we're in a Word document, so you have to push Control and then click on the link. It'll automatically take you down to information that you need to fill out related to your study. So principal investigator, that's you, right? So that's you and me, right? So I'm the lead principal investigator on the study. Even though I promise you I'm not trying to take credit for your study, it's a requirement of the university that a tenure track faculty member be the principal investigator. It basically means if you do something terrible and unethical, it comes back on me, not so much on you because I'm the one who's signing off on your study. So I'm the principal investigator, you're a research team member. If you are collaborating with somebody else, like Ashley and Rodney are working together, you would put both of your names under the research team members. So you'll put your name, your city completion number, that is on that certificate that you submitted. If you're having a hard time finding it, let me know and I can help you with that. This is considered a thesis research. And once you click on this, it'll take you to more information that you'll have to submit related to your study. You'll put in a brief description, just like a paragraph or two overview of your study. You'll insert that here. All of our research will be conducted in the United States, so outside of US is no. The exempt categories, you'll look through these, and chances are, well, not chances are, it's a definite that if you are selecting an exempt research study for this class, it will either be one or two. For all of you who are doing surveys, interviews, observations, that would be a 2. For all of you who are collecting data on your students or other people at the school, if you're doing assessments that you normally would be doing, that would be a 1. Okay, so here again, this just routes you to more information. So let's say, I think most of you are planning to do surveys, interviews, those types of things. So if you click on Exempt 2, it will take you down here. This really just walks you through the process. What will the age of the participants be? So think about if the participants will be under the age of 18 or over, or both. If you have students that are enrolled, you may be asked if you are a team member who teaches these students, and then you can mark that. It doesn't mean that you can't do the study with your own students. It just means that you'll get prompted to ask more questions about how you plan to protect confidentiality, that you're not going to use information that is or isn't shared against your students, and those types of things. So there are several other questions that you'll go through here. You'll describe your participants here, and so on. So I'm not going to go through every single piece of this, but you can go through. If you aren't sure about anything, you can make a note of it and I can help you with that. But for the most part, you're just outlining who you'll be doing your research with, where you'll be doing your research, the type of questions that you'll be asking your participants. Eventually, you will also have to create consent forms and other things that will go along with your protocol. So this form here has lots and lots of information in it. So this will really walk you through that process. But I also wanted to let you know, or to point out to you, sorry, my ReggieNet had timed out, in the 481 ReggieNet page, under the Week 8 Institutional Review Board application, there's also information here about the IRB process. So some of you may have already taken a look at these examples. So if you click here, you'll get information. So every single person who is doing research in a school, and even Brendan, you're doing yours at the community college level, we need to have some sort of information that states that your administrator, your building administrators know that you are doing this research, they understand what types of research you're conducting, and so on. So this is a form that you will complete. You'll submit this with your IRB materials. Okay, so you'll complete this, you'll sign it, your principal will sign it. This should be done before you start your research. So sometimes there's a question, because like with a normal consent form, like that you would be getting consent from a participant, you wouldn't get that signature until you started your study. This is actually done before you begin your study. So there's lots of other materials here. There's a sample script. So when you are reaching out to participants, you'll have to have your IRB protocol or application will require that you include a script. So if you're sending information to students about your study, this is a sample script that you might use. If you're sending it to other teachers, this is a sample you might use. If you're sending it to families, apparently there's a different one. Oh wait, you wouldn't probably be recruiting families. Although if you are, because I think some of you have considered that, let me know and I can work with you on putting together a script for that. So you'll read when you start reading about the consent process that for your students, they will actually be giving assent. I know that's different than consent. So assent will be gathered from students who are participating in your research study. If a student is 10 years old or can read, they can complete something like this. I know there's lots of highlighted things. This is where you'll add your information about your specific study. And they would sign and date this. Excuse me, you can, when we get a little bit closer to this, if you do this electronically, you can do an electronic signature. If you're getting a paper with their signature, we'll have to talk about where that's stored and so on. If they're giving verbal consent, or I'm sorry, assent, this is you reading a little script to the students, asking them if they're willing to participate, yes or no, or if they want to stop, that kind of thing. So this is generally for your students who can't read. So that is a sample script for them. For parents, they actually are giving parental permission. They're saying, I agree that my child can participate in the study. So if you have a student who's under the age of 18, you are also required to get parental consent or parental permission if you are gathering student data or if you are interviewing students, those types of things. If you're doing something that's a regular educational practice that isn't impacting their grade, it isn't impacting anything else that they're doing in the classroom, you can send out a consent form that's sort of a blanket consent that just says, this is a study that I'm doing in my classroom. If you have an issue, you can ask me questions. If you do not want your student to participate, please sign this form and return it. And then that way you assume that everybody got this, that they all consented to it, and you're all good to go. If it's something that's a little bit more tricky, like you're interviewing students or you're gathering personal information, the IRB group will probably make you get signed consent or permission from parents to be able to, for their student to be able to participate in your study. For teachers or other adults in your building, this is a sample consent form. So obviously you'll have to personalize this. The places where it's highlighted and in all caps, those are the things that you'll insert into this document. These things you will also submit with your IRB application. There's an example here. The Cayuse submission process is here, which is what I shared with you. This is parental permission, an example of that for a study that is more confidential. This is another template for a consent form. So there are a lot of different materials in here. I know this can be kind of overwhelming, and I apologize for that, but we will walk through this process. The institutional review board process, this shows you exactly what you need to submit for this first phase of the IRB or this first part of the IRB application. So you'll be submitting the consent that you'll be planning to use. If you're doing information that requires student assent, you'll need that, parent permission, adult consent, and then filling out this study form. So those are the things that you will submit as a part of your IRB application that's due on Sunday, October 16th. Okay, so later on in the semester, you'll actually be entering that information into the IRB with the website, the Cayuse website. So, whoopsie, that's not what I wanted to do, sorry. And I'm showing you my view, so it looks slightly different than yours, I know. So here, you'll be submitting all of these materials into Cayuse, into that website, where the first part, application 1, you'll be sending them to me as attachments. I'll review them before you submit them to the Institutional Review Board in Cayuse. So I know that was a ton of information, but I hope that is helpful in thinking about, in moving forward with this process. If you have questions about anything, oh, I know one other thing. You will, if you are in a local school, so if you are in District 87, one of the lab schools, or in Unit 5, I guess, or Olympia, there's a special procedure you need to go through to get permission from district administrators. This is in addition to your principal acknowledgement letter. So if you are in Olympia, Unit 5, the lab schools, or District 87, there's information for how you go about getting that approval, and that too is on this page. All right. If you can't find it on there, you can go here, and where it says research in schools, you'll click on that, and that takes you to that page where I just was. So again, tons of information. I'm sorry to throw all this at you at once. Hopefully this helped a little bit walking through this with you. I'm happy to set up Zoom meetings or anything else that you might need as you start to pull these pieces together. To me, this is the really exciting part, because this is where you're outlining what you'll be doing next semester in your study. So again, email with questions. Otherwise, I look forward to reading what you're planning on doing.